Hi, my name is Michelle, and I wanted to share how I use movie guides in my classroom. So, first of all, why use a movie guide? I have found that it really helps the students stay engaged while viewing the movie because if not, sometimes you'll have kids laying out on the desk, going to sleep. So it helps them stay engaged. Secondly, it provides an opportunity for students to apply previously taught skills because no matter what grade you teach, I know we always feel like there's some missing skills that we wish the kids had mastered in the previous grade. So this is a great way to practice that. And finally, it allows you to review academic language in context. So that way, when you're talking about objective summaries or themes or central ideas or grammar, you can use it in the context of something that's familiar to the students. So, if you decide to use one of my movie guides, which I hope you will, I will definitely link my Teacher Pay Teacher store below. The first thing I would do is make a copy, front and back. It just reduces the number of papers you have to staple together. And then I would think about how many days is this lesson going to last? Am I doing this for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? I wouldn't recommend more than three because I found that anything over three, the kids start checking out unless the movie is like super duper interesting. Next, before you watch the movie, I would call the students' attention to first asking, has anybody seen this movie before? And depending on the response, if it's like most of the class has seen it, then you can ask them to do kind of like a Likert scale where they use their fingers. So you can say, well, how would you rate the movie? One is awful, two is all right, three is awesome. And I always say, if you're using one finger, to use your pointer finger because, just in case you have some kids who decide to use a different finger, this just keeps everything simple. And then from there, I go over the question, the before you watch question, and then give the students about 5 to 7 minutes to answer the question. And then I give them a chance to turn and talk to someone who's near them. So, it can be if your kids sit in groups, someone at their group, or it can be, if they're in rows, whoever's beside them or in front of them or behind them. I do this because I want to give every student a chance to have a voice. And sometimes if you have students who are very shy or very quiet, they won't often raise their hand to share whole group, but they will share their responses with the people near them. Once we do this, I usually ask for 3 to 5 students to share their responses. Now, as you can see, I have in parentheses at the top here that this could take between 15 to 30 minutes. It really depends on the time of year for me. So that means if I'm doing this right before a holiday break and the kids are restless, I tend to make this last a little longer. Whereas if we're doing it in the middle of the year, I usually do it on the shorter end. So once we get to the next section of during the movie, I first go over the academic language so that all the kids are able to answer, any of the questions in that section. And I'll write those definitions on the board so that the students will still be able to see them while they're answering the questions and watching the movie. I usually pause about 15 to 20 minutes in and I just remind the students, hey guys, don't forget by the end of this movie, this section needs to be finished so they understand that they are watching the movie, but they're also processing it on paper at the same time. And this is really helpful because that way, again, it just helps them stay engaged. Next, once you finish the movie, I go over any academic language that's found in the prompts, write those words on the board because a lot of my resources for movie guides will touch on theme and central idea because those are two concepts that kids oftentimes get confused. And so, I'll just review with them, a theme is a universal principle, it's a life lesson that can be applied to a bigger scenario. And if the kids are having a hard time with that, I'll have them look back at the previous section, which usually focuses on characters, and they can pick one of those characters. And then I can say, okay, well, what do you think that one character learned? What was the life lesson? And then it's easier for them to come up with a theme. I also go over central idea, and the way I teach that is I just say it's the who and the what. So, who was the movie about? What were they doing? And the reason why I make them keep the central idea to one sentence is if not, they'll write almost like a paragraph, which then turns in more to like an objective summary in opposed to just a central idea. So that's why I just teach them the who and the what. I set a timer for this section just because I do want a certain level of urgency so that the students understand that like there's a specific time frame that I need you to finish this in. It also gives me a chance to work with some students who may need extra help because once the timer goes off, if there's still kids working, then I can walk around and assist them. Next, I hand out the word search, or I'll have it placed like on a desk or a table. And when they finish the other page, then they can come up and get the word search. I found in my experience, I don't give out the word search at first because what will happen is while the kids are watching the movie, then some of them are doing the word search, or if they're not doing it, then when they're supposed to be answering the after the movie questions, they're doing the word search. So I think it just helps, keep everybody on the same page. So I don't hand out the word search until they're finished with the other section. I do let them work in small groups or by themselves as long as it doesn't get too loud because again, I like to use this time to walk around and help kids who may need assistance, but I also like to use this time to check in with everybody and just see some of the things they wrote. So, oh, tell me, what theme did you write, or what connection could you make to this movie, or things like that. And if someone had like a really interesting one, I'll ask them, hey, do you mind? Can I share this with the class, or can you share it with the class? And then that way it kind of gives you, just a way to close out the lesson also by sharing some of the good answers and responses that the kids wrote. Once they're finished with the word search, I do one of two things. If you have an interactive whiteboard and you're okay with the students getting up using it, you can have them come up and actually show where they found the words, or you can just project the answer key, and then that way everyone can see where the words were located if they didn't find them all. Now, let's say you had planned for this lesson to last 2 days, but it only lasted one day, or you planned for 3 days, it only lasted two. These are just some extension activities that you can do. The first one is you can have the kids draw a scene, their favorite scene from the movie. I always tell the kids to there can't be any white space because I find that the illustrations are so much better when you do it that way because then they are really more detailed and they actually create more of like a setting to go along with the scene instead of just kind of throwing random characters on the page. Secondly, you can have them create a 3 to 5 song playlist that relates to themes found in the movie, and then they have to write one sentence explaining why they chose that song. We don't actually listen to the songs though, just because, depending on the lyrics, sometimes, they may not be safe to play for a whole group setting. Different kids listen to different types of things, but I definitely, let them share the title, and oftentimes the other kids will know the song and they'll agree. Sometimes they'll disagree. Also, you can have them do an A to Z list about the movie. So this is really good with just vocabulary because then they can come up with different words and you can get really creative and say, well, come up with a noun or come up with a verb or come up with an adjective or come up with an adverb. So that's a great way to practice. Another thing you can do, which the kids really love, is using weather words to describe how they felt at the beginning, middle, and end. And so what this looks like is at the beginning of the movie, it may have started off sad. So maybe for a kid, they may have been feeling cloudy, or maybe it was rainy. Or if it was a happy middle part, then maybe it's sunny. Or, if it ends on a good note, maybe it's like a rainbow. Or if it ends on, a sad note, maybe it's like a blizzard. Or, and the kids can attach their own feelings to the weather words, but it's so good for them to kind of start incorporating symbolism, and it really just helps them kind of expand their abstract thinking. And finally, you could also use the title of the movie and then see how many words you can spell. With this, I usually do give some parameters and say things like, it has to be at least 3 letters or it has to be at least 4 letters. That way, it really challenges them to come up with some, longer words. So finally, what do you do with these completed movie guides? I use it for a grade in some capacity because I never want my students to feel like I'm just giving them busy work and I'm just wasting their time, especially when we do a movie like right before a break. So, if you're in the United States right before like Thanksgiving or the winter break or things like that or spring break, I want them to know, no, this was for a purpose. So I usually will use it to replace a missing assignment if it ties back to something we had already practiced. So if we were already practicing themes in Central Idea, I'll attach it to that. Or I'll use it for extra points on an assignment that they've already completed. Or I may also substitute it for a homework grade. And I just noticed that instead of A, B, and C, it says A, but guess what? This is just showing nobody's perfect, so I'm definitely not going to re-record this whole thing just to fix that slide. So anyway, moving on. I don't use this for a penalty though. I only use it to improve a student's grade. And here's the reason why. If you use this movie guide as a whole new category, then what happens is it becomes harder for you to then, how will the kids who were absent, like how are they going to watch the movie? Like, are you going to provide them time in class to watch the movie? And how will you know they'll have access to it outside of school? So, just to keep it simple, I just use it as a grade for something that's already existing. Like, I don't create a whole new grade category for the movie guides. So I hope you found this information helpful. And if you're watching this because you purchased one of my movie guides off of TPT, thank you. I hope you like it. And if you found this and you didn't know I had a TPT store, I hope you'll go visit because I do have some movie guides out there that you might find helpful. So thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful school year. Bye bye.